All right, Michelle, these are my favorite type of interviews. And like, if I give you the resume, I've interviewed presidents, I've interviewed rock stars, I've interviewed athletes, but I'm always more excited about talking to franchisees because the story is always impactful, because at some point you made a decision that I am going to take my life my career into my own hands and do something special, and that's become a franchise owner. So to put that to the side, I want to start with your story. How did you fall into franchising? What was your pathway to even becoming a franchise owner?
Well, I'll start from the beginning. It is not traditional. I know a lot of people were, probably from a business background, and then, we're looking for that opportunity. It kind of happened because of a accident. My brother was in a tragic car accident in 2011. And at that time, we actually had to hire a home care agency to assist with him in the hospital. And through just, life happening, I was on a Southwest flight and actually saw the advertisement for a home care franchise. And I said, I remember meeting the gentleman who came and did the assessment on my brother, and him saying that he was from Wall Street. So I was like, okay, I don't have to have that background. My background prior, I was just finishing my PhD in education, with a concentration in athletics. And I was the high performance director at the United States Olympic Committee, which totally not healthcare. And I said, I really liked the just helping people. And I love that he came and brought a caregiver. And I always feel that I was a caregiver at heart. And so it just seemed right. And I just followed my gut and pursued looking into the franchises at that time and said, you know what, I'm going to make a change in my career. So that's a roundabout way of how I got here. And that was 11 years ago.
All right. So 2011, your brother is in an accident. When did you see the Southwest ad?
Literally, I think 3 weeks after the accident, I flew get some more clothes.
So, I mean, and frankly, your story on alignment to many people that fall into senior care comes from, I didn't really have an experience with this industry. I didn't envision owning a senior care business, but because life gave me lemons, I learned something that was a gap in our communities of taking care of someone through this model. Was it there's got to be a lot of complexity going through you emotionally at that time, because you're going through what your brother is going through. Plus, now you're thinking about totally pivoting your life into a different career. And sometimes those good or bad moments in life is enough to tweak us to say, let's go down another path. But how was it navigating the emotional side of caring for your brother and saying, wait, I'm going to throw my PhD in traditional sense to the side?
Right. I think you speak to it exactly. It's that emotion piece. I think, something has to happen to move you in a different direction of your day to day. And having that emotional piece of my family being the caregivers and realizing that this is not our profession. We're not trained to be caregivers. And there were so many other things that had to be done for him that we really needed someone else to step in and be by the bedside at all time. And for me at that time, even through all the emotions and what I didn't know, it kind of made me realize, like, this is a need. Like, this, there is a strong need for this, because I saw other families with sitters in the hospital. And then I just started doing more research and researching about the baby boomers. And I said, well, my brother, he's not a senior, but he's a disabled adult now. How is his life now changed? And he's going to need someone. So for us, even though it was so emotionally draining and we were tired, I saw that opportunity that this is something that I want to pursue. And I want to be able to make a difference differently than how I was doing it with my PhD.
Did you find, and I'm framing this because
Yeah.
it's my assumption, did you find, like, in your professional career that politics or a boss? Like, was there something that was also like giving you warning signs that said, Michelle, you're not going to be happy staying here, and that you're seeing the delicacy and shortness of life through your brother, that it was like, it allowed you to say, I don't have to be afraid to make that pivot?
I think because of something so tragic happening, I felt fearless for a little bit. I
That's
felt
awesome.
absolutely fearless that I could just take this jump. And talking to someone who had done it from, coming from Wall Street into our industry and actually doing the research and seeing that I didn't necessarily need a healthcare background. I think for me, especially coming as a researcher, with years of experience, I felt that, oh, I had to have this toolkit before coming in, and realizing that I could learn and be able to just offer this service and the opportunity to be my own boss and not go through the navigation of tenure and proving myself with all the things of research. I said it kind of gave me an motivation. This is something new, and for
Mhm.
that I was excited.
So you see this ad. This is 2011. You see
Yeah.
this ad. How much time, with your research background, how much time does it go from, okay, I'm now thinking about it 3 weeks after your brother went through his injury? How long did it take you before you navigate to a franchise website and fill out a form?
To be honest, it took a while. I just kind of, when you have something and you put it in like, this is my idea box. So I took the magazine from the airline and I said, okay, I'm gonna put this in my little idea box, and I kept it to the side for about 7 months. Once my brother was getting better, I said, let me go back to that, and that's actually when I called Right at Home. And I was one of those unsure where I wanted to have the franchise, because I was in Colorado, I was doing research out of the country, and I had family in New Jersey, and I wasn't sure where I wanted the franchise at that time. And so they courted me for about a year before I actually pulled the trigger of where I wanted to go.
Put me on the other side of that. So they're obviously, and there's two sides to franchise, and obviously they're motivated to continue to recruit new franchisees in. So they're courting you. They're trying to convince you why you want to do this. But on the other side, what are some of the emotional battles that you're going through to even decide, or pure research that you're going through that can get you up to the starting line and then say, I'm not ready? Like, what was going on emotionally throughout that process that you had to overcome as a human too to become a business owner?
I think trying to figure out what I didn't know. I think for myself, I was talking myself out of it. Like, okay, well, maybe this territory will be better. And then I started researching, okay, how many home cares are in this? And this one has the least, and this one has the most. Or, I was trying to market analysis to the point where it was paralysis, right? And for me, to be quite honest, I had my mind set on coming to Texas. And I had my mind set on the city that I had visited prior. And that territory wasn't available at that time. And for me, I believe in signs, and if something else kind of correlates with it. And so at that time, I actually, because Right at Home didn't have it available, I started to look at other franchises.
Hmm.
And during that period of time, I realized I really like Right at Home. They were thorough, they communicated back to me. There was just a solid communication that I did not receive from the other franchisees.
Hmm.
The first conversations went great, and then it went cold, or it just didn't happen anymore. And what I liked about is that they stayed active with me throughout the process, even though I was kind of unsure. Like, okay, I think this is the next step, but I'm having a little hesitation, the emotion of, is this the right step? And so, you're second guessing yourself and trying to make that decision. I was 28 at the time when I was starting this whole process and navigating my career. So I was also just trying to make sure that my brother was okay, make sure his care plan was set with my mom and family, and then trying to navigate changing my career and also defending my dissertation. So it was kind of a coupled time of a lot happening, but it was the best choice I ever made. And actually taking the time, that's when the resale came about. So Right at Home said, hey, there was a city that you were really interested. It's now for resale. And that was after that, months later. And it was perfect.
You know what's interesting about your process, and I would use the terms franchise sales and franchise development. Franchise sales, you're talking to other businesses, and they're selling you. They're like, Michelle, if you buy right now, we'll give you the free knife set.
Right.
And then right at home's like, look, you got to go at your own pace. We're here. We're gonna use kid gloves on this, and I'm always surprised at the misses by other franchise brands, especially in this scenario, or where the culture hasn't been well defined, because a brand is asking you to invest your life savings into a business that you have little to no control over, because you're buying a franchise. Right. And so that's and you got to quit your job. And in this case, that PhD that you worked endless hours for, that's on the side. Oh, and you got the emotional strain of something that's happening in your family too. Like, that's complex. And so I like hearing the stories where a franchisor was respectful back to the franchisee, because it's scary. And you were on the sidelines for a while. We're like, if you look backwards, if you're backcasting, do you wish you would have pulled the trigger faster on making the decision, or did all this have to work itself out to get to this point?
I believe the process had to go the way it did. Learned from it. And originally, when I was going through the franchise process, I had just contacted the top 3 that was on one of the franchise sites. I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out to these top 3. These are the top 3. And I really wasn't impressed with the other ones other than Right at Home. And I kind of had ruled them out because I really wanted to get to Texas and have that territory. But having that courtship, kind of what you mentioned in regards to just building that relationship with me, is really what, made the difference. That courtship, that time spent, that really getting to know me, because this is going to be the relationship, right? I need to trust you, you need to trust me, and that sometimes takes time. And for me, I respected that. And that's how I feel of the culture of Right at Home. It is a family affair. And so you just can't do a quick transaction with that. And it's the same way in regards to the families that we care for. It's a relationship that we're building. And so we're not trying to be the, fast food of home care, right? This is a long-term relationship that we're going to have over time. And sometimes even our customers now, it takes time before they make this big decision of deciding to have a caregiver in their home. Sometimes we have to take a little piece and just have a visitor come once in a while, PRN, as needed, before they actually build that trust with someone coming home to actually help with their activities of daily living. So I think the process happened as it should, and I learned along the way, and I just think it was the best decision.
We're talking 11 years. So the truth of the matter is the walk and the talk aligned. And there's like, again, sales versus developing candidates. There are brands that sell you in, and then they're like, okay, go. And if your expectations aren't set properly, or the culture isn't aligned, your happiness deteriorates immediately, because now you're on an island. Your money is tied up in a business, and you're stuck. Yeah. For you, though, it clearly, what I'm hearing is the walk matched the talk.
Yes, and actually, you said a word that I really like. It didn't feel like a sales call. The lady that I was dealing with franchise development, her name was, she's now retired, Diane Huffer. She presented herself like a professor to me. Like, these are the things you should know, Michelle. These are the things you should consider when buying. And tell me just about you. Tell me about your dissertation. It wasn't even about Right at Home. It was about me. And I really love that. And she was just like a guide through the process, and it wasn't salesy. I didn't feel that salesy, like, make this buy, or you can actually get another territory if you buy now. And I did have that experience with other franchises. And so quick sale, trying to get you to buy right away, and it's a big decision, and it's a lot of money that you're putting forward. And so you really have to make sure your gut and everything feels right. And I think the other piece that made me feel different about my decision and why I wanted to go with Right at Home was with the Discovery Day. Going to Discovery Day and having them interview, we're interviewing each other, and they're going to make the decision if, you can go forward. I didn't have that before with others. I kind of received a PDF and like sign here and submit cash. This is going to be transactional. And so having that little relationship piece and actually going to the corporate office in Omaha, you're building these relationships. That time, we weren't really doing Zoom in 2012. This was just a phone call and building rapport. So going to Omaha and building that relationship with the person I've been talking to for almost made such a significant difference in making that final decision to sign.
I'll make a comment. I love everything that you're saying, but and this will close the chapter on the sales versus development. But I think of it like what you just said. Like here's the paperwork, sign or sign fast or buy another territory.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this as the biggest miss for a franchise brand. And if you want to look at a case study of a brand that's done things right, you can look at Right at Home. You can look at the story and the culture and the leadership. And even when leadership moves on, the new leadership holds on to the new culture as they come on. But you think back, like if you're sold into it, the odds of you succeeding as a franchise owner are less, which then in turn, like the franchisor needs to make money through royalty. And so if you're not succeeding, they're not going to succeed. And the value of that franchise owner to the system is very little. You like if the brand was to put a value on you as a franchisee that's been in the system for 10 years, that continues to build success, like you've impacted them too. And you talked about that, the mutual trust. I think it's so, and I feel awful for franchise candidates that are out there in the world, because it's hard to see who you can trust. It's very challenging in franchising, because you could see some list on top franchises and think, okay, well, they've been listed, but there's some BS behind it on how they got listed. So I'm always excited when I hear that the story has worked out the way that it had planned. So my next question, like I think about this dissertation, the amount of time, energy that went into doing this process. I can think through things that I did in my career before I fell into franchising. As a journalist, I put all this time, blood, sweat, and tears into because I wanted to be the greatest journalist that ever existed. And then I'm like, okay, I switched careers. I went into franchising, but I can reflect backwards and say, it maybe not the substance, or not the headline, but the substance is what has impacted me, because I've learned how to talk with human beings, like all the things that I were able to pull out and now help me on my journey to be a successful business operator. Are you finding like that's the case? Like it may not be exact, but it's all there. Like it taught you so much that it is valuable.
Oh, it had to be part of my journey. I'm sports as well as education. And so building that's what Right at Home is. I'm building a team of caregivers. And for us as a team, we're always assessing our wins and losses, right? And we're always assessing what that win means to us. And having a successful caregiver staffed on a case, that's a win. And there's sometimes where it's a loss and it's just not a good personality fit. But we always want to make sure, our wins are higher than our losses, but always assessing, at that time, like, okay, why did this personality not work with this caregiver, with this client? And how can we use this person in a different way? Maybe they need to be with a certain kind of skill set or a certain kind of client. And so that gives us a good definition of our caregiver matching. But I think also with that process, it just gives us such leverage on how we do business, from the education background, the sports background, how you said it specifically. It was much easier to connect the dots backwards, because right now I feel that I am an educator in the community and researcher on all the things healthcare. And that's one thing about home care. We're this puzzle piece to the maze of all the healthcare system that exists. And so you kind of have to be a researcher and understand Medicare, Medicaid, hospital, SNF, independent. You have to be kind of an expert of the full senior industry to be a full resource in your community for home care. And I feel with my background in education, that has given me the opportunity to be a subject matter expert in communities and speaking to seniors about home care and what that looks like, if it's a good fit for you or not. And then with sports, I think everyone loves sports. We're just coming out of March Madness, and we were able to, go to communities and play a March Madness game and leverage that. And there's just so much fun that you can have with seniors and disabled adults, and incorporate sports with that. They do chair volleyball, and I think anytime you can leverage the opportunity to have fun and talk about sports, they love it too. It's just part of society. So it does give me that leverage with seniors. And I think they enjoy it just as I do. And so I'm able to tap into that experience.
I'm gonna frame my statement, and I just want your comments on it.
Sure.
So two sides to your story. Side one is the sports side, and you'll see how I connect these. Sports side, losses can be tough, but after you know what it feels like to lose, and you get yourself back up, and you go and find yourself back to whatever sport you're competing in or whatever sport you're a fan of, you then believe that you can achieve again in the next one, like a win is possible.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put that over here. And then your facial demeanors, like you're so warm and welcoming, your smile is so refreshing that clearly there's happiness behind you in the way that you're showcasing your just your demeanor to me.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a tough industry though. Like you deal with loss every day. How are you able to keep this smile on the face? Because I would imagine as a franchise prospect, if I'm looking at getting into senior care, and most likely, again, I've had some experience very similar to a brother or an aging parent. But how are you able to, like, is your sports background and understanding loss, like, does that translate into your ability to move on to the next day and have a good day the next day? Like, how do you manage that emotional stress?
Well, I think with sports, that's where it comes with that mindset. It's that mindset that even though you lost today, tomorrow's another day, right? You have to pick up and keep going. And there's a lesson with the loss. And Deion Sanders always says, you just have to keep making plays. No matter what, like even if when you're out marketing and, they say, no, it's okay. Keep making plays. Something is going to work for you. And if you're doing it with the right intention, with the love and with the compassion that you need for home care, people are going to see that. And I think for myself, a mantra that for my office and just for myself every day is, yes, I want to have a successful business, but I don't want to do this unless it's joyful success. It has to bring me joy. And for us, our wins are helping people. And that's just pure bliss for me. We're helping people daily, and we're able to see that. And we're coming into a point in people's lives where it is difficult. There is sadness. It could be that they're on hospice, similar to my, a life-changing event that happened. You're talking about high stress. And then you're trying to come in and help them. You have to bring a spirit, because that spirit is what they need at that time.
Yeah.
That is their medicine that they need. And actually the person you're caring for, seniors are the most isolated population, highest depression. We have to come in, and that's something we teach with our caregivers. We have to bring that energy, we have to bring that light. And so that's just something I hold dear to myself, and that's something I think that comes from the sports culture, that you have to have that mindset of succeeding, and that today is going to be great.
But blessing might be too big of a word. Maybe it's the silver lining. But if I think about your story about your brother and how old you were when you're going through that, because that's unpredictable, unexpected. And so if you and I go back to our childhood and say, how does our life work? Everything's rosy, and we live till we're old, and everybody lives till they're old, and nobody gets sick, and then life hits in a different way, and everybody gets hit with life at different points in different ways. Is it a silver lining that you, as a 28-year-old, is going through what you had to probably realize on again, the understanding the delicacy of life, that ended up giving you a tool that you're able to now use as a business owner later on?
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's crazy to think that, something so tragic had to happen before you could make a shift, but it had to happen because you wouldn't have seen that window before, or you wouldn't have be able to have that level of empathy to help others. And I think that had to happen for myself and my family.
Why do you think, and this is philosophical,
Yeah.
why, like, we think about the industry, senior care, and again, like the pathway is, you go through something, you discover the business category, you get into it. For the majority of franchisees that have entered senior care, it shouldn't, and maybe it's care, maybe it's compassion, maybe it's business, but why don't kids say someday I want to own a business in a care category? Like, is it just like, is there some gap in our education that's not, it has to be triggered by an event, and we haven't exposed children to, like, the impact that you could potentially have in your community by caring through seniors or the people that live in your community?
I've thought back to that. Like, how come this didn't come as you've done so many Myers-Briggs tests, and, you know,
Right.
why did this not link? And I think it's just not given as a pathway. I know for myself, when I did the career test, it said nonprofit would be the most ideal for me. But with that said, I also did love the idea of being a business owner and doing business. And I also had, like, similar to your journalism, right? I had this passion for sports, and I thought that was my trajectory, which had to happen. But I just feel that when you're going on this journey, you just don't know how the pieces will lay. But the educational system does not. I don't think I ever heard of senior business. Even I know it had to have been a business, but I guess in my world, I just assumed it was, within the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that you could do it as a for profit. So I do feel that, and even for myself now, speaking to my colleagues that I did my PhD with, and they're like, "You're doing what?" Okay. I never
Yeah.
thought, that could be profitable. And it's interesting. I think we need to actually, the senior business should be more linked with, those generational gaps of really educating younger people in college, even in high school, to the exposure. And I think that piece is missing. I used to do take your daughter to work day with my mom, right? And my mom's in banking. And I was like, okay, I can see the business side, right? My dad owned a business. I saw him be a business owner. So that has to happen more, and I don't see that as much in the senior industry of having that opportunity for young people to see it as a career trajectory,
Yeah.
and a business, and there should be more links with that.
I'm gonna put it out in the aura. Not that we can make a change on a podcast like this, but the like, if I think through a gap in education, and this goes all the way through the end of education. Now, yours is much more sophisticated than mine. I majored in something that was, journalism is simple compared to what you went through. But if I go back, like math and science, all that's fine.
Hmm.
But when you miss out on compassion and care and how life works, and even understanding, like, at some point you and I are going to go through what your clients go through in some capacity,
Hmm.
but we don't educate children about this. And if we did, maybe bullying changes, maybe some of the behaviors that is like aggressive behavior is, like, we could just be nicer to each other, and understand that we're all going to go down this path in some capacity. Again, I don't think we could change the education system on a call like this, but philosophically, I think if kids understood what you do as a career, like at career day, it's not just banker, firefighter, police officer, teacher, it's also caregiver. Like, there's something special and magnetic about that.
But it's something you said. It's funny. I had a conversation with my mom about in Easter, and she showed me a picture of me being a candy striper. And I never correlated. Again, I used to love volunteering, and I did candy striping all through high school. And then when I would go visit my family in Jamaica, I would volunteer at the hospital there. And it's that piece is not connected to education that really grew me. Like clearly that was just something I thought was fun. I loved going to I remember it was at St. Barnabas Hospital in Livingston, New Jersey. And I loved just sitting down talking to anyone who was in the wheelchair, and I would get them from point A to point B or help them at the front desk. And I think it's that how you choose to spend your time when you're not in school is really what is going to be your foundation. And it wasn't until we had the conversation and she showed me the picture, I was like, Mom, I never, I was like, Mom, now this makes sense why I'm here doing what I do. And I totally just didn't remember it. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I was a candy striper. And I used to love my little outfit too. I thought it was the cutest thing.
Isn't it's fun, like in moments throughout life, we might not understand the purpose or the meaning, or we enjoy it, but we don't understand how the puzzle pieces get put together. And then when you look backwards, you're like, okay, that makes sense. Now it's a tool or a part of our DNA, and that's awesome that you have that. So
Yeah.
what does success look for you in the business now? Give me a glimpse of where's the business today, and what does success and the next steps look like for you?
Wow. Well, I have to appreciate where we are right now. Success is now the presence for us. We are able to serve so many families. I've grown from 1 to 3 territories.
That's great.
And for us, success right now is really being able to service our market to the max and being able to give high quality of care. That's success to us. I see myself in this career for the long term. For me, I'm walking and doing my purpose. And it's funny because, you spend that time doing your PhD, and I kind of look at my dissertation book from time to time, like maybe I should dust this thing off. But I'm so excited about where I am now. I can't see myself anywhere else.
And you've gotten and received and earned a PhD in compassion and caregiving, as it relates back to business. I think you said something that is sticking with me. So look, all of the pathways that go into nonprofit, just because a business is profitable doesn't mean it can't do good. And it's almost like nonprofit is a broad stroke term, but it's more so like, how can you, where does the volunteer mindset or the charitable mindset connect and bridge with business and community? And that's kind of what you're doing here. So let's say there's someone that's watching this, they watch our discussion up to this point. And my viewpoint is that brands don't sell brands, people do. Ultimately, I watch someone, I hear their story, I look at that backdrop, and I get super pumped up about, I could walk a day of in those shoes.
Right.
If someone's watching, how would you recommend, whether it's right at home or it's something else, what advice would you give to them as someone that's thinking about becoming a franchise owner?
Anyone thinking to become a franchise owner, I think the biggest thing is making sure you are following in your purpose. If you have a desire for home care and you have a desire to give back to your community and give that do good and also have a successful business, this is the right fit. But you have to have that compassion, that love, and care for people on their good and their bad days. Because you're seeing people at their worst, and you're going to also be able to go on their journey with them. And so, if that's something that someone wants to go through that journey with others and carry them through that to the next side, then I say this is the right business for you, because you not only have to love on the clients, you have to love on your caregivers. And that is a big piece of it, for the retention and for the business, and that's your product. And you have to be able to invest in your employees. And so if you have to show them the same level of compassion and care, just like any client. And I think if you're ready for that next step, this is the business.
Well, Michelle, and I think that the advice is actually good for franchisors too, that are looking at evaluating a franchise buyer to come in the system. Obviously, again, like forget about the financial side. Someone that's been in the business this long, that is committed, that is continuing to scale, that wants to have impact, and then all of the DNA and the culture behind you, franchisors should be saying, how do we build a system of Michelle's so that we continue to protect the system? And that's part of where culture plays such an important, part of the puzzle. And, I think I'm grateful that you've shared your story with me. I love it when I get value out of the conversations too. Like we've made the most out of our time. And I think for anybody that's considering franchising or career change or making some sort of change in life, like they can get value out of watching this discussion. So I'm grateful that you were able to share your story with us today.
No problem. Thank you. And it's such a pleasure to learn your story as well.
That's great. For Michelle, I'm Nick. This was another episode of Meet the Z. Take care.